Just when you think they are done, Andrew Berry comes back and signs another defensive back. They are trying to get deep in that defensive back room. They signed Troy Hill from the Los Angeles Rams. Now, I know a lot of questions are, who is Troy Hill? Is this a big-time signing? And what does Troy Hill bring to the Browns? Well, let's talk about it. But before I do that, I want to make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, ding that notification bell so you can be notified when I upload a ton of great content coming out for the offseason, the draft, what's left of free agency, all of those things. You're going to want to make sure you're locked in, subscribed, and notified so you don't miss a single video. Also, I want to give a shout out to the patreon.com dog check tier members. And as always, I start with Michael Matique, Rob Farron, Kyle Stouffer, Lukey from Munich, David Roth, J Guy 101, Musty Taco, Joe Bobby, Keith Gerkak, Edward Carpenter, Greedy Shoulder Gemini, Brad Calbo, Daylon W, James McGinty, Arenda Hall, Rex Kaufman, Chad Gimme, David Molinado, Andrew Sadejo, Dylan Hill, Matthew, Josh Bendor, Eric Green, Jaleel Salim Jr., Martha Krusna, Mark M, TJ Showman, Stuart Moore, Bobo Regretti, Anthony O, David Arndt, Robert Jermaine Jr., Dave Mike May, John Cummings, Yo-Yo, Fight 3074, Andrew Hirsch, Hundo Magnifico, Paul Wilcox, Curtis Bayer, Batman, Rush Sharir, Barack Kumar, John Alver, Beerman 069, Masayua, Buds of Roland, James Nemo, Mac House, Reeve Hertz, Philip Wilcoxon, Marie Vivert, CK, Keith Anderson, Sean Barron, Gagos Pisano, Dom Gazzulo, Nick Nasty, Ian Whitaker, Colin 216, Anthony Latham, Christian, Matt Bond, Dave Strong, Michael Stone, Soul Train, Charles Work, Billy, Michael Holden Acton, Moose Gentry, Austin Z, Mark Burnett II, Andre Griffin, Otis Swift, IT Rex, Greg Ehlers, Austin Bolin, Jesus Serrano, Chris Fones, Picktown Brown Backers, Liam Freeland, Matt Lloyd, Mark Kahn, Max Out Dojo, and Water Bear Marketing. Again, guys, thank you so much for that support, whether it's on Twitter, YouTube, subscribe, not subscribe, daily watch, or whatever it is you do to see my face every day or so. I do truly appreciate it. So without further ado, let's talk about Troy Hill and what he's going to bring to this Cleveland Browns team and why he is a big deal of a signing. So the Browns signed Troy Hill. Now, who is Troy Hill? Troy Hill is a slot corner primarily. He's very versatile. He can play both inside and out. We kind of talked about a guy like Desmond King coming in and filling a role that Troy Hill fills. Now, Troy Hill, I think, is a little bit better than Desmond King. He's probably going to be a little bit more expensive. I don't know what Desmond King went for, but Troy Hill is a better player than Desmond King at this point, is a more consistent player at Desmond King at this point. He is a slot corner. He's primarily going to play the slot, but he can also bounce outside there and play outside. Again, versatility is key for this secondary and for the Joe Woods' defense. And again, it looks like they're attacking that weakness, right? The Browns' defense last year was not very versatile. This year, they seem to be attacking that. When it comes to how much of an upgrade this is over Kevin Johnson, the last slot corner, it's a massive upgrade. Kevin Johnson was the 96th ranked defensive back in all of football. Troy Hill was the 27th ranked defensive back in all of football, according to PFF.com. Also, when it comes to the PFF grades, it's a massive leap. Kevin Johnson had a 52.6 cover grade, and Troy Hill had a 71.9. That's a massive gulf. That's a massive difference. This is a serious upgrade at the corner position, and it's interesting, right? Because it seems like it goes in phases, or at least Andrew Berry likes to work in phases, or if he doesn't like what the market's giving him at the moment, he's really not going to attack. And it looks like he likes what the defensive back market is giving him as far as value goes, because last year he didn't, right? And he filled up all these roles on the defense with one-year contracts so he can re-up this year. Now, if you look at the defensive line, it seems like that's going to be the philosophy for the defensive line this year. Maybe you reload next year when the cap goes way up so you can really attack those defensive ends instead of getting locked in for 4 or 5 years on somebody that you really weren't so hot about spending $15 million on, like a Bud Dupree who's injured already. Maybe you can save that money this year, spend it next year, and get somebody you really want. Maybe that's the thinking. As time goes on, I have learned that Andrew Berry seems to know what he's doing at a very, very high level. So again, versatile signing. It also shows you kind of how Andrew Berry is attacking the market because of his aggressiveness in the secondary market and his value that he's finding, right? It's one thing to be aggressive. The Patriots have been aggressive, but we'll see if that bears fruit as far as wins and losses go. In years past, the Browns have been ultra aggressive when it came to free agency, and it really didn't help them become a better team at the end of the day because they had some of these, foundational issues with the team or with how they were constructing the roster. Now it seems like the Browns, they have their core and they're doing what you see a lot of good teams do, right? When the Ravens are at their best, when the Steelers are at their best, when the Patriots were still, the Tom Brady New England Patriots, these are things that they did where they would bring in guys in value, not really go for the biggest names, but get some good value out of guys. And this is exactly what the Browns are trying to do or what they're attempting to do. And I think they're having good success. We'll see in the season if all of these signings pan out. But if we're going to look at what he signed last year and how those signings panned out, I would think it's reasonable to assume that he has a pretty good scouting department behind him and that he has a good eye for this kind of thing. So again, Andrew Berry was brought in here to kind of put the small pieces of glue together and keep the ship going. And he's doing that. And I think he's doing that at a better level than any of us expected. And now when you add Troy Hill, this excellent slot corner. He's a very good cover guy. He's somebody you can occasionally have on a tight end. He's somebody who you don't have to worry about the slot when you're out there. You can run these dimes, nickel sets, whatever you want to do. He can be out there. And you can have a lot of sets where you have a ton of defensive backs out there, which is important because one of the things the Browns defense did poorly last year was cover space because they were slow because they didn't have enough defensive backs out there to put a ton of them out on the field and be able to cover or defend a run well. Now you're not in that situation. You have so many versatile and big defensive backs on this roster that you can run whatever you want from a coverage standpoint, theoretically. You got John Johnson, the third. You got Greedy Williams. You got Grant Delpit. You got Denzel Ward. You got Ronnie Harrison. Now you got Troy Hill. All of those guys can legitimately, except for Greedy Williams, I don't know if Greedy can play two positions, but when it comes to it within the secondary, all of those guys can play two. Some of them can play three. Multiples of them can play three different positions. So when you have that kind of versatility, you have really good coverage units. You're able to do some of the things against the Baltimore Ravens when it comes to containing Lamar that a team like the 2018 Chargers were able to do against him when it comes to having a bunch of defensive backs out there to match the amount of spread that he can have on a field. You just have so many different combinations. It's very enticing, and I'm going to be interested to see in training camp, whatever OTAs end up being, how they're going to roll this out, because I think there's going to be a ton of different packages out here when it comes to the secondary guys, including the linebackers, and how they're going to use them. I think Andrew Berry has given Joe Woods a ton of toys to play with. And it looks like Andrew Berry asked him, hey, what do you need to make this defense more livable? And Joe Wood said, give me all the defensive backs you can find. And Andrew Berry is delivering at good numbers too. 4 years, $24 million is a really good number, $6 million. Let's keep in mind, they just agreed to the new TV deal when it comes to the NFL. So that cap number is going to explode. It's probably going to go up to like $230 million. And keep in mind, the Browns have been rolling over cap since about 2016. So I think they have, and I'll have to ask Jake Burns this, but about $30 million in rollover cap, which means if that cap is $230 million, the Browns can go all the way up to $260 million without penalty when it comes to their cap number for at least a year, because they have all that rollover. So they are in a tremendous position as far as cap space goes, because they might be tapped out for this offseason within a few signings here, but they have a ton of space coming forward in a cap season where a ton of teams are going to have a lot of space and where you're going to have a ton of guys you're going to want to retain. So having that extra $30 million in rollover to play with is going to help you be able to retain all of the core players that you want to retain. So the position the Browns are in is tremendous, and you have to give credit where credit is due, and that credit's due to Andrew Berry. And I hear some people, they're still on the fence about Andrew Berry. They still don't know about Andrew Berry, and I think That's a tad ridiculous at this point. One, this is not Andrew Berry's first year in the Cleveland Browns organization. He was somebody who was here at the beginning of this rebuild. If we're going to acknowledge that Sachi Brown was pretty much the genesis of what this current Browns team is, and it is, then you have to acknowledge Andrew Berry was there as the VP of player personnel. Sachi Brown was not picking the players at that time. It was more Andrew Berry who was helped setting the table for this rebuild. And then in 2018, a year where people give John Dorsey a ton of credit, and rightfully so, right? John Dorsey deserves a lot of the credit, but he does not get the credit alone. Other people helped him that year in 2018. One of those guys in 2018 that helped him was Andrew Berry, right? Andrew Berry was there when they made the trade for Jarvis Landry. He was a part of that decision-making process for Nick Chubb and Baker Mayfield, right? They talked about unanimous consent about drafting Baker Mayfield number one. He was in the building. He was one of those guys saying, yes, this is what we need to do. So this is not just a one-year thing with Andrew Berry. This is like 5 years of him helping this franchise get to a much better place. And now he's at the point to where he's gotten the groceries, he set the foundation, he's put the table down. Now he's putting icing on the cake with some of these signings, and he's doing it at very reasonable, very good numbers. And especially when you consider this is a pandemic year where like it was crazy what the offseason situation was going to look like, the cap numbers, the numbers that you're going to be able to sign people with. It was unpredictable, and he's still been able to kind of maintain such a good salary cap position. You can't ignore that the Browns are in a really good position for the future, and you can't ignore that Andrew Berry has had a massive part in doing that. And if we want to talk about John Dorsey and some of the pros and cons of John Dorsey, we can do that, right? And I'm not saying this is somebody who doesn't want to give John Dorsey any credit, but I see a lot of people just give John Dorsey all the credit in the world and act like Andrew Berry just walked into this situation with everything made. One, everything you're saying that was made for him when he walked in, he helped make, right? He was here all but 1 year, 2019, which, by the way, not John Dorsey's best year at all. The 1 year that Andrew Berry wasn't in the building was probably the worst offseason that this team had in the last 3 years, right? You talk about the Zeitler for Vernon trade, which ended up being a mistake. You talk about none of those 2019 draftees becoming consistent starters. Yes, you got Greedy Williams, who you would hope, but he hasn't played a full season yet, and everybody else you don't even know is really going to make the roster outside of Sione Takitaki. So, no, it wasn't a great offseason. Obviously, you hired Freddie Kitchens. Mistakes were made that year. It just so happens to be the year that Andrew Berry was not in the front office. Now, is there some kind of correlation there? I don't know. But the fact that we talk about Andrew Berry as if he walked into such a great situation and ignore the fact that he helped set that great situation up, it's just been kind of ridiculous to me to hear some of those criticisms of him. So he has had a great 2 off seasons as far as free agency has gone. I felt like he did a great job last year. I feel like he's still doing a good job this year. I look forward to seeing what these guys bring to the table. I'm just excited. I want to get to training camp right now. They haven't even drafted anybody. I want to know how these defensive backs are going to line up this season, what kind of coverages they're going to roll out, who's going to be on what packages. I am super excited about that because I think it's going to be really interesting because the amount of versatility that you have. This defense went from one of the least adaptable in the NFL to one of the most versatile, I think, in the NFL as far as secondaries go. You have so many guys who can play multiple positions. Grant Delpit could play linebacker. He could play strong. He can play free. He can play slot corner. You could put him outside on select numbers of wide receivers. And the same is said for Ronnie Harrison. The same is said for John Johnson. Like, you have so much versatility in this secondary. I am so interested to see what the Browns are going to do with that. But that's what Troy Hill and his signing brings. It brings more versatility, a very strong slot corner, somebody who's going to be able to kind of shore things up. And when the Browns have to be spread out a lot, like when they played Pittsburgh this past year, and they kind of got torched against Pittsburgh, now they have more guys to put out there. Now they have somebody who can defend the slot. Now they have somebody who they can reliably put on a Willie Snead. Well, he's not going to be in the division anymore. A Juju Smith-Schuster. Well, he might not even be in the division anymore. You get my drift, right? They have somebody that can reliably put on the slot to limit those first down conversions, which were a pain in this team's neck. They have somebody they can put on tight ends. They have multiple people they can put on tight ends. They have like 5 guys you can put on tight end right now. So they are in a good spot as far as coverage goes. Now, the defensive line, look, it is what it is. It looks like they're not going to spend a ton of money there, at least this offseason. Looks like they're waiting to attack there, and they're hoping that this secondary is so good that it gives Myles Garrett more time, and Myles Garrett gets to get home more. We'll see. At this point, you have to at least give Andrew Berry and his philosophy and how he wants to attack a chance. I think he has earned the benefit of the doubt as far as giving it a chance to see if how he wants to attack this is going to be a worthwhile approach, because he's been one of the better GMs, one of the better personnel people that have been in this building for multiple years now. So I think it's worth just giving that chance. But that's my thoughts on the Troy Hill signing and the job that Andrew Berry has done within this first week of free agency. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But again, guys, thank you for watching. Have a great day. Have a good night.